tonight, Justin Trudeau apologizes for wearing brown face years ago, but is it enough for local voters?
I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better, but I didn't.
In today's time, it's quite disgusting to see something like that.
The reaction fast and furious, the Liberal Party in damage control after the bombshell revelation. Plus,
as far as we are aware, this is the first case of vaping-related illness that's been reported in Canada.
London health officials raised the alarm after a teenager is hospitalized with a severe respiratory disease. They say the teen had no health issues, but vaped daily. And there could be 17,000 feral cats on the loose in Toronto. We'll tell you why that could be a good thing. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. As you saw on the National, the Liberal Party is dealing with the fallout and international attention after a photo of Justin Trudeau in brown face goes public. Now, this is the photo everyone's talking about, taken from an old yearbook back in 2001, published tonight by Time magazine. Now, speaking to reporters on the campaign plane tonight, Trudeau apologized for his actions.
When I was a teacher out in Vancouver, I attended an end-of-year gala where the theme was Arabian Nights, and I dressed up in an Aladdin costume and put makeup on. I shouldn't have done that. It's not about timing, it's about having done something that I shouldn't have done, and I'm really sorry I did.
Now, asked if this was the only incident of its kind in his past, the Liberal leader admitted that it was not. He said that in high school he dressed up at a talent show and sang Deo with makeup on. Asked if he should resign, Trudeau said incidents like this should be treated on, quote, a case-by-case basis. Now, right as that photo was published and started being shared online, an event to engage Muslim voters was just getting started in downtown Toronto. Our Angelina King was at that event. Now, Angelina, what were people saying about that tonight?
Well, Mike, it was really mixed, and people were just learning about it as things were kind of getting underway. When the photo was being shared, I did hear somebody gasp. I saw some head shakes. Most people I spoke with didn't want to comment on camera. The organization itself saying that it wants to remain nonpartisan. But I did hear from both sides. Some people saying, you know, this happened a long time ago. People make mistakes. Others saying it's just unforgivable. I did speak with one volunteer there on camera who sits somewhere in the middle.
In today's time, it's quite disgusting to see something like that. But I mean, in 2001, when Trudeau was in his 20s at a party, I don't think this is something that a leader should step down for. I mean, if anything, the SNC-Lavalin affair is a much bigger deal than this.
The news didn't shift the focus from the event, which was all about educating Muslims and breaking down barriers to democracy. The Canadian Muslim Votes Get Out the Vote launch party is the nonpartisan's own election campaign to get Muslims to the polls.
Don't complain if you don't vote. And it's very true. We are loudest when we vote, and it's so important that we participate and be there so that we can strengthen democracy in this country.
This year, we are going nationwide.
The organization will be sending out at least 100 kits to mosques and organizations across Canada to help them engage with their local voters. They say there are various barriers between Muslims and voting, including educating immigrants who aren't familiar with the democratic process in Canada.
So they get used to this idea of, you know, my vote doesn't count, my vote doesn't matter. And that's the narrative that we're trying to combat here with TCMV, where we want to say, like, you need to vote because your voice matters.
Especially in this election, they say. According to the Canadian Muslim Vote, there are 113 ridings where the Muslim population is larger than the predicted margin of victory.
That's what our target is to be in every single one of those ridings where the Muslim population has the ability to make an impact in the outcome of the election.
That's empowering for voters like Cyrene Kreshy. One day she wants to be on the ballot because she'd like to see more diversity in leadership. For now, she's grateful she can vote.
To have that decision-making power empowers us, even as Muslims, to contribute to this society that we live in, and we are also Canadians just like anyone else.
The Canadian Muslim Vote says the big goal is to increase Muslim voter turnout. They say in 2011 it was at about 30% and then went up to 79% in the last election. They say this year they'd like to once again have a higher voter turnout compared to the rest of the country. Mike?
Okay, Angelina King reporting for us live tonight. Thank you. I'm going to go to Brampton now, where a pedestrian was struck by a vehicle and killed tonight. It happened just after 8:40 in an area of Wanless Drive and Queen Mary Drive. Now, at first, the man struck here was said to have been in life-threatening condition, but police later announced that he died. The driver of the vehicle did remain at the scene. Wanless Drive is closed westbound from McLaughlin Road and eastbound from Queen Mary Drive. To another significant story we're following tonight, what could be the first case of a vaping-related lung illness in Canada. Health officials in London say a high school student there was put on life support because of a severe respiratory condition. They say the teen had no other health issues but vaped daily. Ali Chiasson has more.
As far as we are aware, this is the first case of vaping-related illness that's been reported in Canada.
A teenager in London, Ontario has been hospitalized with severe pulmonary disease, landing them on life support last week.
The individual recovered and is now at home.
After treatment and examinations from Middlesex County doctors, all signs pointed to one cause.
No other immune-related issues. The only issue that was identified was that the individual vaped e-cigarettes.
This news comes after hundreds of cases of vape-related lung problems were reported in the United States, including at least 6 deaths. And look around. From the advertising to the fruity-smelling vape clouds you see on the street, it's just as popular here, especially among young people.
They're so small, you can really just do it anywhere and the vapor will dissipate really fast. They're super addicting. This is just a mango flavor.
When did you pick it up?
A year ago?
Yeah, and why? Was it to wean off smoking, or?
No, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. That's just disgusting.
Flavored vape juice makes the nicotine more palatable, and according to doctors, potentially more dangerous in the short term.
They think there's nothing wrong with it because it just tastes like cherry vapor.
As of today, Ontario's Health Minister Christine Elliott has now ordered all public hospitals to report cases of severe pulmonary disease due to vaping.
We will be starting to receive the information immediately, and that will give us a clear snapshot of what's happening across the province.
And whether it's a ban on flavorings or a ban of vape pens entirely, the health minister says
all options are on the table. We're talking about people's health.
Adults these days and their opinions.
This is our version of smoking cigarettes. It sounds corny, but you only live once. Like, really?
No particular brand has been implicated in this, and no particular substance either, nicotine or cannabis oil. The message today is to seriously think before you vape, whatever it is. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, from vaping to cannabis use now, a new study by researchers at CAMH says long-term cannabis use could be elevating stress and anxiety levels in young adults.
We thought that cannabis would show a reduction in this neuroinflammatory biomarker. And what we found, it's an increase in this biomarker of neuroinflammation.
Well, let's break that down. The study concluded that a brain protein linked to stress and anxiety went up in regular users. The CAMH team tested 24 people who used pot at least 4 times a week for at least a year. The average age of those tested was 23, with many of them starting to smoke pot at a young age. Marahi adds, in order to conclude there is a link, she wants to do a similar study testing people who are regular pot users but who also abstained from smoking for the duration of the study. Now, an update to a story we brought you Monday. A Brampton woman injured in an apparent domestic incident has died. Her husband now facing charges in her death. Police were first called to a home on Checkerberry Crescent in Brampton Monday afternoon. That's where they found a 58-year-old woman in life-threatening condition, suffering from what police described as blunt force trauma. She was rushed to hospital but died of her injuries this morning. Police arrested the woman's 64-year-old husband at the scene and charged him with attempted murder, but police now say those charges will be upgraded. Auto workers at the GM plant in Oshawa are bracing for more layoffs. A strike by 49,000 auto workers in the U.S. is disrupting the supply chain across North America. Workers say the truck plant ran out of parts, leaving those who did show up today with little to do.
No, I just went in for work for 305, and we didn't do anything. We were told that the day shift was sent home early, and we hung around for 4 hours, and they let us go at 7:05. And That's about it.
A GM spokesperson admits production of some lines is being disrupted and that the company continues to monitor the situation. The head of the workers' union, Unifor, expects further layoffs in Oshawa and eventually at GM's other plants in St. Catharines and Ingersoll.
St. Catharines, about 80 to 90% of all engines that they build go to the United States, so we're expecting that they're going to be negatively impacted within the next day or two. And our CAMI plant in Ingersoll, 50% of all engines that go into those vehicles come from the United States, so we think they probably have about another week to go.
Now, workers in Oshawa will continue to get paid during this disruption since their plant will be closing at the end of the year. GM agreed to guarantee full wages for their final 16 weeks of work. Carla Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast, and I'm looking at that graphic behind you, and I'm curious, what possibly does this mean?
Yeah, I know it could have many explanations here. I'll tell you, we're paying homage to high pressure. That's what we're doing here. This is this weather pattern, and it's the one that's been here for a few days, and it is going to be here for a few days yet, and so it is the reason that we have the lovely weather that we're seeing, but also I just kind of put this circle around it in terms of because we get clockwise circulation around high pressure, sinking air, stable air. But the other thing that this is doing is that it's sort of blocking anything that's trying to come in its way. So that be it other weather systems that might bring showery activity that are trying to come in from the west and pushed eastward, they're having to skirt around to the north of this ridge of high pressure, and we will see that dry trend carrying on. Now, a bit more cloud cover starts to come in into Friday, especially into southwestern Ontario and extreme eastern Ontario and up into cottage country, but things not looking all that bad for the GTA. We'll get into the long-range forecast and how the weekend shapes up, but overnight tonight, 13, and tomorrow, a little milder, 24 degrees, and we still have some sunshine there, Mike.
We can thank that giant high-pressure system for it. Thank you very much, Colette.
You're welcome.
Right now, 17,000 feral cats could be roaming Toronto streets. That's actually good news. We'll explain why when we come back. The City of Toronto says it has a plan to save $750 million a year by reducing its own office space by about 25%.
It's a responsible change that will be brought about in a responsible manner, and it will not disrupt any kind of frontline services. In fact, I believe in the end it will enhance frontline services and the way they're delivered to the people of the City of Toronto.
Next week, a city agency will look at a proposal to reduce the total number of office properties from 52 to 20. Mayor Tory says that'll open up 8 properties for city building purposes, including affordable housing. He says the city's also proposing a revitalization of civic centers as well as Metro Hall. The plan would also involve moving more jobs outside of the downtown to Scarborough and Etobicoke. The changes would take place over the next 25 years. Well, we're getting a sense tonight of how many feral cats are in our city. According to an analysis by the Toronto Humane Society, there could be as many as 17,000 roaming the streets. Now, while that might seem like a lot, experts say that number is actually good news. It marks a drop in homeless cats. Lauren Pelly explains.
A good boy.
Connie Archambault is a lifelong cat lover. 16 years ago, she started feeding a colony of feral cats.
I knew that I had to do something about getting them spayed and neutered.
So with the help of rescue groups, she trapped the strays from the colony, who brought them to clinics for spaying and neutering surgeries.
Since 2004, there have been no kittens. And then they slowly died out, just over time.
The Toronto Humane Society believes the same trend is happening in cat colonies across the city. A new analysis provided to CBC Toronto was based on surveys and land use data. It suggests the city is home to roughly 17,000 feral cats. That's down from previous estimates a decade ago that put the population at close to 100,000.
The number of cats coming in that are considered a stray have been decreasing over time, and Toronto Animal Services has the same record with that.
Both teams credit neutering programs for the success, but that doesn't mean the colonies will disappear.
We have new colonies added every day. We're up to about 700 colonies in total registered, of which about 80% of those are in Toronto.
This feral cat advocate says more work needs to be done, so spots like this 7-cat colony in the West End neighborhood of Warren Park don't get any bigger.
The life for a cat on the street is very difficult. 75% of kittens die within about 6 months, and the average life for an adult cat is 2 years.
Nearby, Mississauga is also struggling to reduce their populations, with thousands of feral cats calling that city home.
And I was always concerned that they wouldn't.
Archambault says the best thing fellow cat lovers can do is spay and neuter their feline companions.
Mostly because there are just too many kitties living outside that shouldn't be living outside, and they suffer greatly.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
After 22 years, it feels like the right time to step away from the sport.
Well, they are one of Canada's most famous duos and the most decorated figure skaters in Olympic history. Coming up, we'll bring you the video where they announce their retirement. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It just feels for us like it's the right time to say goodbye, but we're still
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg appeared before a U.S. congressional hearing today, and the climate activist delivered a short message.
I am submitting this report as my testimony because I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the scientists.
And the biggest polluters are going to committee, Mr. Graves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
By 2030, Thunberg was one of 4 young students invited to speak. She and other young people worldwide are leading massive coordinated strikes from schools with dates this Friday and next. The goal is to raise awareness of climate change.
A 50% increase.
Well, the Blue Jays in Baltimore tonight. The Orioles up 2-0 in the second. Bo Bichette gets 1 run back, hitting a single to left. That scores Rowdy Tellez, but it looked downhill for the Jays after that. Back-to-back home runs in the fourth. Baltimore's suddenly up 7-1. Didn't look good, but the Jays started to battle back. 7th inning, Teoscar Hernandez with a nice 3-run home run here to make it 7-5. Then in the 9th, the Jays were down 9-5, bases loaded for Kevin Biggio. He singles, that scores Rowdy Tellez. Bases still loaded. There's Randall Grichuk with a grand slam home run. That puts the Jays up 10-9. They'd score another one and hold off Baltimore ultimately for an 11-10 win tonight. And the Leafs preseason taking them to Ottawa for another game against the Senators. Sends on a power play in the first. Max Veronneau rips one into the far top corner for a 1-0 lead. Second period, Toronto down by 2. Austin Matthews fires from the circle. The shot goes off the post and in to make it 2-1. The third period saw Toronto once again down by 2. Once again, it's Matthews playing the puck. Watch this, off his chest, and then he bats it out of midair. His second goal of the game, but Ottawa would go on to take this 4-3. Well, Canada's skating sweethearts are calling it a career. Today, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moore announced on Twitter that they are hanging up their skates. Here's some of the emotional things they had to say about retiring.
And after 22 years, it feels like the right time to step away from the sport. I mean, not before we pour our hearts and souls into this Rock the Rink tour. We can't wait to go coast to coast and celebrate this with all of you. But this is so personal and emotional for both of us. We're just so grateful. How lucky are we, really, that we've gotten to share all of this together and with all of you.
Yeah, we just still can't believe people care. Like, people have showed up. They've supported us year after year over a 22-year career. And we feel like the most fortunate kids in Canada still.
Well, the pair aren't done with skating quite yet, though. They are launching a Canada-wide tour called Rock the Rink. That kicks off next month. Caller Kennedy's back at their extended forecast, and this nice stretch of weather continues for the final week of summer.
Oh, yeah, we're doing so well here. This last weekend of summer looking good, but it's like as Monday comes and we get into autumn, that's also when the weather pattern changes. So Sunday's kind of one of these transitional days. Our average high at this time of year just over 20 degrees, and we're beating that. We'll continue to do that as the temperature climbs into the weekend. Average low 9.2. We're doing better on that scale too, but we do have somewhat cooler overnights just because high pressure means there's not as many clouds, so not as much insulation to keep any daytime heating in. I do want to point out record rainfall for this date in history. That's a record. That's going to be a hard one to beat, and that's okay. We don't need the flooding that be associated with that. 108 millimeters back in 1948. Now, your daytime highs, this is how they look. Mid-20s southwestern Ontario, over towards Ottawa and the Ottawa Valley, 20, and in between 22 degrees in the city. And here's what's happening still, is with this pattern of high pressure being in place, and it's very strong, large, dominant, systems are having to take the road around. So they're not taking the most direct route eastward. having to go around, takes the showers to the north of us, but some of this cloud cover is building in a little bit, especially into cottage country back through southwestern Ontario. The other thing happening, and this is what's important, is humidity building Friday and Saturday. Because of that, this isn't so much because of a system moving in that you're seeing these little spots of green. We could have, again, north of the GTA or into the southwestern parts of the province, a few pop-up thunder showers into the afternoon. Very highly isolated, but just because the humidity in the air is going to start to go up and the heat as well. So kind of summertime pattern getting into there. Overnight tonight, southwestern Ontario, 14 for your low, 24 to 26 with all kinds of yellow on the board, all kinds of sunshine tomorrow afternoon. Our overnight lows, here you go, around the Golden Horseshoe, and I look at tomorrow afternoon. Really pleasant conditions. Winds fairly light as well, so they're not much of a factor. And it just gets hotter and more humid. Starts to get even a little bit sticky Friday into Saturday. And then Sunday, more clouds, showers move in, and there it is, the first day of fall. The temperatures also plummet a little bit too that day, Mike.
It's like Mother Nature pays attention to the calendar.
Yep, riding right along, just in time.
Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
Workers removed 54 bells at the Metropolitan United Church today. They'll be taken to Ohio to be restored and retuned.
But time takes its its toll, as it were, on the bells.
The smallest bell that we're bringing down will run about 12 to 15 pounds. The largest bell we're bringing down will be about 150 to 165 pounds.
Now, the other 23 bells are just too big and too heavy to come down, certainly. So they have to be restored where they are in place. Now, getting to them is a bit tricky, as you can see. They were installed back in 1922, and this will be their first makeover. The entire restoration of the bells is expected to take around 6 months. Well, tomorrow on Metro Morning, we'll be talking with the director of the National Ballet School about a huge milestone. For the first time ever, there are more male dancers in the grade 12 class than female dancers. We'll hear about from one of those students and talk about changing attitudes about men and dance. That's just before the 8:30 news on CBC Radio 1. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.